हम किसी भी मेधावी छात्र की संभावना परीक्षा माफिया के कारण खराब नहीं होने देंगे। एंड ही गोज ऑन टू से किसी छात्र के साथ अन्याय नहीं होगा। 16 जुलाई को घोषित नीट यूजी की परिणाम संतोषजनक रहे, जिसमें गरीब पृष्ठभूमि से आए कई मेधावी छात्रों को सफलता मिली, परंतु इस दौरान भी कई छात्रों को गुमराह करने के लिए जिम्मेदार पदों पर बैठे व्यक्तियों ने बाधा डालने की कोशिश की, जिससे मन अत्यंत अव्यवस्थित हुआ। देन ही गोज ऑन टू से, भारत की युवा शक्ति हमारी ताकत है। मैं अटूट विश्वास रखने वाला हूँ, युवाओं का, आकांक्षाओं का, सपनों का गहरा सम्मान करता हूँ। ये केवल भारत का भविष्य नहीं बल्कि एक नए विकसित भारत के वाहक, निर्माता और भविष्य के शिल्पकार भी हैं। पिछले 10 दिनों में घटनाक्रम देखकर मेरा मन दुखी है। ये मेरे लिए व्यक्तिगत प्रतिष्ठा का विषय नहीं है। भारत की युवा शक्ति ताकत है। जंतर मंतर में जो स्थिति बनी, इस स्थिति का राष्ट्र विरोधी ताकतें लाभ ना उठाएं, देश की एकता बनी रहे, उस पर फोकस रहे। इसलिए मैंने अपना त्यागपत्र प्रधानमंत्री जी को भेज दिया है। मैं आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के मार्गदर्शन, विश्वास और निरंतर सहयोग के लिए हार्दिक कृतज्ञता व्यक्त करता हूं। साथ ही मंत्रिपरिषद के अपने सभी सम्मानित सहयोगियों, मंत्रालय के अधिकारियों एवं कर्मचारियों तथा उन व्यक्तियों का भी आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। सर्वोच्च प्राथमिकता है श्री जगन्नाथ जी के आशीर्वाद से मैं भविष्य में भारत माता, उड़ीसा की जनता तथा देश के युवाओं की आकांक्षाओं के प्रति हर संभव रूप में समर्पित रखूंगा। धर्मेंद्र प्रधान. So this is the letter. So I think the entire Gen Z movement has been able to,
mobilization. They mobilized and they fought, and Dharmendra Pradhan has finally resigned. Do you think this will die down now because they had other demands as well?
See, other demands, I think now everything is going to come down. I think everything is going to come down. I don't think, I really don't think that students will let this entire gig continue for one simple reason. That this entire demand or the entire movement was around the resignation of the education minister. Now the resignation has happened. Now entire thing has been taken care of. So I don't think any other thing is going to happen. I think this Andolan is going to come to an end. And there will be a lot of bites coming. There will be a lot of reactions coming. A lot of people are going to speak on it. But Ahana, I think it's a great movement for the Gen Z. I think it's a great movement for young students. They have been able to do something which entire opposition was unable to do, which means that entire opposition was unable to get Pradhan resigned. So it's a big movement for the Gen Z struggle.
Definitely, I agree to this. The Congress was not able to do it. The entire India alliance was not able to do it. And CJP called for a protest. Several other people joined. There was a massive protest. Do you think that CJP will also emerge as a new political party or a big pressure group?
I think Chhatra Janta Party is not a political party. I think you have asked a very good question to me, Ahana. Chhatra Janta Party right now is a pressure group. It has not transitioned to become a political party, because when India Against Corruption was launched, it was not a political party. Aam Aadmi was the political party. Entire effort of the early Anna Hazare agitation was the renewal of Indian political system. But once everything stabilized, they decided to jump in Delhi. So I would say that it's too early to say that CJP will evolve into something big. But what CJP has delivered is something absolutely amazing.
And it remains to be seen. I remember I was watching it on YouTube last night, and somebody asked Abhijit Deepke that do you think you will ever contest elections? And he said, we are not ruling out the possibility. So obviously we'll have to wait and see if there is a Arvind Kejriwal arc to this.
I don't know whether there's an Arvind Kejriwal arc to this, Ahana. I think it's a bit too much to read into Arvind Kejriwal arc. But if you look at the basic demands, education system in India is broken. And when I say the education system in India is broken, it's actually broken. Why should so much of paper leak would take place? Why would stuff like that happen? UPSC paper never leaks. NDA papers don't leak. Other examination papers don't leak. NEET leaks. Why? Because the NTA system was contracted. But I think we are missing woods for the trees. This is not the time to talk about the reform right now. That's like putting the cart before the horse. Right now, I would say the most important thing in this last 12 years has happened. Every year, 2 ministers from Manmohan Singh's cabinet had to put in their papers. This is the first minister in entire Modi tenure who had to put in his paper out of public pressure. And Gen Z has been able to do that. Now, that's something outstanding. Congress was not able to do that. So, which means that the government was very much cognizant of the fact that if this continues, it's going to have a major impact. Why? Because it affects everyone. The protest was coming from BJP's own, I would say, constituency, which is that non-quota constituency. BJP's politics in the last 12 years had been about Peedit, Shoshit. Now, the people who are giving NEET don't come from that. They are middle class. Middle class is what Muslims were to the Congress in 70s and 60s. And now middle class was feeling upset. So in a way, that would affecting BJP more than ever. And then education is the core agenda of Bharatiya Janata Party and RSS. So any goof up happening in education affects the entire leadership feeling, not the structure. Leadership feeling of the RSS or the Sangha Parvar Bharatiya Janata Party. So in that case, I would say that this is unprecedented. This is unprecedented what the Gen Zs have been able to do it. I mean, so these are young children who have made a minister resign. And Congress party couldn't do it in 12 years. That's the biggest success. And I think Gen Zs have, smashed into the Indian politics. Gen Zs have also done another thing. Gen Zs have, for the first time, proved that the BJP is behind the tech curve. BJP was always ahead of the tech curve. BJP was ahead of the Congress when it came to Twitter, WhatsApp, Facebook. But somehow Insta game was beyond them. Insta and YouTube. That's where Ahana, Gen Z was able to take the lead.
This is not just a doom-scrolling Instagram generation. This generation had asked for the resignation of the Education Minister of India, and they were able to achieve it. Sneha Koshi is also joining us on the phone line. Sneha, big news. Dharmendra Pradhan has resigned. Do you think that it is a big victory for the movement, for the Gen Z movement?
I think this is a game changer. This is very, very important in so many ways. If anyone has been to the protest site, one thing everybody would have heard was particularly of a lot of young people coming to the protest site because of two reasons. One, when Wangchuk was picked up. And second, I think a whole lot of young people, particularly those with no political party backing, young kids from different states who really made their way to the protest site at Jantar Mantar because they were very upset with what happened on July 20th. They believed that the lathi charge on students was unacceptable. That was a turning point, and a whole lot of students really made their way to the protest grounds on Jantar Mantar after that. This is something many would speak, and it was not just a Delhi students' protest. It was not just the students in Delhi who came and protested, or young people. Of course, as we have been talking, there have been protests from all kinds of groups. There have been students associated with political parties. There are young people associated with different organizations, and all of them were part of the protest. But this was not just a Delhi-based. There was mass mobilization. And most of this among young children who use the social media extremely strongly. In fact, one thing that really stands out is how, and I have been talking about this very regularly, and that is, it's important. The government could not have done anything because at the heart of this protest still remains a lot of young teenagers, youth, who don't belong to, who are not active political participants of a party. They are not active political activists of any party or any organization. They are just angry. They are just upset. They are just coming there and they're just sitting there. Their parents are allowing them to do that. they have traveled from different parts of the country. That was the kind of resonance and movement on the ground. And if you went to the ground, you had people from all profiles who were walking in. Through the day, they would just trickle in. You had people who were, who were from all stratas of the society. Some extremely educated, well-spoken. Some not that well-educated, but well-spoken. They knew they were there. They were upset. They were angry. You asked them about why they were there. They would say the police crackdown, the lathi charge was not acceptable. Some would say it is about the education system. Some would say that, we are preparing for exams and we are extremely unhappy about how things are happening. And there were a lot of reasons for why they came. They just came. Not all of them believe in CJP as a party, but they believed in the cause for the protest, the cause of the protest. Uniting factor. And if you look at Dharmendra Pradhan's resignation letter, he says it. He speaks about how the youth of this country hold the country's future and power. And he addresses that and he speaks about that very clearly. He says that long live student power. He talks about how the youth of this country should not remain in any delusion. Yes, Kartik. Yes.
Sneha, please stay with me. Please stay with me. Let me introduce our guest, because we are also joined by Shekhar Vijayan, political analyst. Thank you, Shekhar, for joining me at such a short notice. My output editor Sneha Koshi continues to be with me. Our young anchor Ahana Prakash is with me, and I have jutted into this entire broadcast stream. Couldn't just let go of the news. That's what breaking news and broadcast journalism is all about. Your thoughts? Isn't this momentous that opposition parties couldn't effect a minister's resignation in past so many years, in 12 years? A Gen Z protest by children has affected the resignation of, I would say, one of the blue blood ministers of the Modi government.
Absolutely. Good afternoon to all of you. I think it's a very interesting moment. It's a momentous occasion in the universe of Gen Z today. This is some kind of revolution for them.
Shekhar, let's cut into what Abhijit Debke is saying right now.
We have done it! We have done it! धर्मेंद्र प्रधान ने रिजाइन कर दिया है। We have bloody done it! क्या कहते थे ये? क्या कहते थे? इस सरकार में इस्तीफे नहीं होते। क्या कहते थे? इस सरकार में इस्तीफे नहीं होते।
Well, Shekhar, coming back to you, please continue. You have seen the visuals on the screen. Abhijit Debke celebrating.
Ahana, is Abhijit Debke still speaking?
No, sir.
Okay, Abhijit Debke is still not speaking. That's the point, Vijayan, I was making to you. कि कहा जाता था कि इस सरकार में इस्तीफे नहीं होते हैं.
So I think that's the whole idea, right? This is a revolution, mini revolution of sorts, where they have effected a change. See, it also goes to show that the government was under pressure for the last 47 days. They were not speaking to them, and now they had to make this step. They had said, like Abhishek said, that that the government has not made, resignations don't happen in the government, and this change has happened. This has given an impetus to the party, but more than anything else, there are families, there are parents, there are children who have been involved in this. We have seen videos of what's happening there in Jantar Mantar. And we have realized that there is a big problem there. The government also realized it. They have made the change. But what is also important is what happens after it. Now that he's resigned, who replaces him? What is the system going to be like? I think the problem really is how the system going to change. Now we need to have a committee in place in terms of making sure that these mistakes don't ever happen again. And it's also important that accountability is there. This has happened because there was zero accountability, and this change has happened because we were asking for the accountability. So who will replace him? If the person who replaces him is going to be the same, then what's the difference? The second thing is, what changes are they going to make? What systems are, what is the committee going to be about? What kind of, how will the system make a difference? The system is a problem. How are you going to make a change in the system? That's important. We should not be happy with this victory. I think there are more days to come, I feel. But I think it's an important victory for this revolution because they made a change and they've galvanized it in more ways than one. They all must be so tired because of what's happened, the Lathi charge, so many days sitting on a strike. The youngsters have shown that if they know they've used social media well, not just as a platform where people used to make fun of it, but social media as a platform to galvanize people around them. They have showed that it's not about election rallies. It's not about, one-to-one sessions. It's about social media and how you spread the word. And they've done that in their own way. Like, I think this just goes to show how brave they are, how confident they are, how courageous they are, how outrageous they are. And at the end of the day, they won something, and that's important. Now they need to build on this and take it from there, but also ask the government who's going to replace them, what are the systems and changes. They've got to be more collaborative here. If they're collaborative, I think they will achieve more success here. That's going to be important.
I think on Vijayan, on that, the government will need to also change the approach because the entire thing was around Prime Minister Modi. So entire credit goes to Modi, the blame also goes to Modi. That's the way the government has been. Sneha, you had been to the you had been to Jantar Mantar. Yes, day before yesterday. Yesterday I was there. The kids were pretty hopeful that the minister will have to go. It's so surprising. Kids, they had this feeling that this entire thing will give in. Sneha.
If you spoke to anybody there was one thing that would stand. Everybody wanted the minister to resign. And there were different reasons for it. Some said, had very pure political reasons. Some said, this is the point of change. We cannot go on with the education system. Some were just upset with how things were happening for the last few years. If you brought in the fact that even in other governments, under other governments, and in earlier years as well, in the earlier UPA government also you've had paper leaks, like what the government has been saying. If you brought in this point and asked them this point, they would just say, so what? Does this continue? This is the point where we want things to change. That was a kind of a sentiment. And if you went to that protest ground and you moved out, anyone who would have gone, you would have known that even when Wangchuk broke his fast, and even when Wangchuk said Dharmendra Pradhan's resignation is not the key factor, even when he said that as explicitly as he did, one had a sense of what was happening on the ground in the protest site. The young people of this country, the protesters who were at Jantar Mantar, and particularly the group that I call that are not politically aligned actively to any party as activists, all of them spoke of Dharmendra Pradhan's resignation. That would be the starting point. And yesterday, I think, when JP Nadda told the CJP leaders during the meeting, give us time till tomorrow to talk about Dharmendra Pradhan's resignation. That was also a signal of how the government was looking, because even though we were not present at that meeting, one thing is crystal clear. The moment CJP would have gone inside, the first thing they would have told JP Nadda would have been resignation of Dharmendra Pradhan, and there's going to be no talks beyond that. That would have been the pitch where they would have set it with JP Nadda. So Dharmendra Pradhan's resignation was really the starting point for anything to tone down Kartikeya.
Absolutely. Vijayan, now a lot of press conferences will take place. A lot of I would say pressure would come from the opposition on the government. For the first time, they will be on the back foot. But I think there is also a bigger story. And I think the Shivaji Sarkar also joins us. Thank you so much. There's also another story. The other story is, for the first time, BJP could not get into the technical curve. They were behind it. Now they want to join Instagram. This is not that tech-savvy BJP.
Absolutely. So I think they want to now. I think what's really going to happen is the opposition or the government would want to build a narrative that they made a difference, they took a decision. But the real story is I think like the Prime Minister had mentioned yesterday, he'd spoken about his ministers being on Instagram because the youngsters are on Instagram. Gen Z is on Instagram. The new generation is there. They're not there on Facebook or on any other social media platform. I think what's really important is they've taken a first step towards understanding what the youngsters want. The major grouse all of us had is that the government was not listening. Now they have started listening. Now it's also important for them to not just take this ahead, and accountability should be used here. And it's not just about Dharmendra Pradhan resigning. What is the digital?
तुम्हारी हमने लाठियां खा ली, सर फुड़वा लिया। इस देश के स्टूडेंट्स ने बहुत हिम्मत वाला काम करा है। तो 20 जुलाई के बाद और 20 जुलाई से जितने भी स्टूडेंट्स के ऊपर केसेस किए गए वो सारे के सारे वापस होने चाहिए। एंड टू द पीपल ऑफ इंडिया, टू भैया to the people of India, this is how a democracy should be. ये लोकतंत्र है, ये लोकतंत्र है। मुझे पिछले एक महीने से बहुत बड़े पॉलिटिशियंस, बहुत बड़े मीडिया वाले कहते थे, क्या कर रहे हो, कब तक बैठोगे, नहीं देंगे इस्तीफा। आप जानते नहीं हो क्या इस सरकार को, बहुत ही निर्दयी सरकार है, किसी की नहीं सुनती है ये सरकार, अपनी मनमानी करती है, बहुत जिद्दी सरकार है।
Big news. I think it's a we will be cutting live. I'm sorry, this is live. This is live that is happening. And Dipke has been speaking there. We'll be going across to. These are the visuals from. These are the visuals from Jantar Mantar. Let's listen into the Nat. I think the celebration that is taking place there.
We have very talent. क्या कहते थे ये? क्या कहते थे? इस सरकार में इस्तीफे नहीं होते। क्या कहते थे? इस सरकार में इस्तीफे नहीं होते। हम कहना चाहते, झुकती है दुनिया, झुकाने वाला चाहिए। वैष्णवी, give me the names of all the नीट वाले बच्चों का बैनर लो।
So again, pretty joyous scenes from Jantar Mantar, unprecedented. I think the government, the government felt that this could go out of their hands because they understood. They understood that if the university is open, that the protest is going to become big. I'm also joined by Brijesh Pandey, input editor of News9. Brijesh, your thoughts on it? I was there yesterday, and I told you when I came back to office, Brijesh, a lot of young people. Brijesh Pandey also joins me. Brijesh.
Well, I think, what has happened, Kartikeya, is that for the first time, government realized that it has been caught in a limbo, and there was no way out. The fact of the matter is that, when Abhijeet Dipke came to India, at the airport, there was a lot of police officers present, and many thought that he would not be given any permission to protest and all. Surprisingly, the government gave him permission. And, we saw Sonam Wangchuk along with Abhijeet Dipke and others sitting there, doing a 20 plus days long dharma there, hunger strike there. Many thought that, that this was a momentum which could be contained very easily. Unfortunately, that didn't turn out to be true. The day Sonam Wangchuk was forcibly lifted from Jantar Mantar and taken to Chhatra Janta Hospital, his wife kept on tweeting that they are not allowing to leave him. And the sheer high-handedness with which the Delhi police dealt with the protesters, the student protesters there, this sparked a light, which has seen perhaps for the first time in the last 12 years, I may say, Kartikeya, the government in its most vulnerable position. Right? The government right now is in its most vulnerable point, and the reason I'm saying is that the government has weathered many storms before in the 12 years of their power, their rule, but they have always withstood being forced to act. This is perhaps for the first time in the last 12 years they have been forced to act. and it doesn't give good optics as far as the Narendra Modi government is concerned. The second point is, I would say that government initially thought that, what is happening, I think that it's a big lesson for people who work for the government. The government initially thought that people, the students or the youth which is coming there must be belonging to one party or another. I think from Monday onwards, it was very clear to the government that people from all walks of life, students from all walks of life, they are the ones who have joined the protest, and they have become the mainstay. The protest, I mean, it became bigger than what Abhijeet Dipke thought. It became bigger than what Sonam Wangchuk was. And the protest had a faceless leader, which was the youth of the India itself. And that is the reason why, the government, which was already being pilloried by the opposition in the first week of the monsoon session of Parliament, was literally cornered. And I think this resignation of Dharmendra Pradhan is perhaps one of the most monumental, decision, if I may say, as far as this 12 years of Narendra Modi government is concerned. Now, it'll be very interesting to see how it moves forward. Because if you look at the tweet which has been given us by Chhatra Janta Party, they have made it very clear that one of the demand has been met. They have checked it, one demand met, but two other demands, which is giving 1 crore each to the 20 or 25 students who have committed suicide because of this paper leak, and plus withdrawal of all cases against the students. And I think, when after Dharmendra Pradhan resigning and the flurry of administrative reforms the government has been talking about, now there's no other option left before the government but to go ahead and believe it. But I think, in the entire political spectrum from 2014 till 2026, I think this is the most vulnerable moment as far as Narendra Modi government is concerned.
Absolutely. Let me go across to Mr. Shivaji Sarkar, sir. Your opening comments. Oh, Prasanajit also joined. Prasanajit, how are you? He joins me from Shillong. Vijay continues to be with me. Prasanajit, your opening comments.
Yes, it's again a victory of the student power, I must say. And then it took so many days, almost nearly a month, for the government to arrive at the rational decision, showing that the government lacked the direction to think what is the right action that should follow after such a protest has broken out across the country. And Pradhan's resignation, in a sense, is a relief, because the youth power was just bustling and they would have again gone towards the parliament. And then, the situation across South Asia gives us what is written on the wall. Therefore, it's a kind of a face-saving step, very late by this government, which government should not have taken so much of time. Had they done it in the initial days of the protest, things would have been looking better as far as the country is concerned.
Wait a minute. Let me just take another bite of Mr. Dipke. There are a couple of bites which we want to play. Let me play out those bites, and then I'll come back to you.
धर्मेंद्र प्रधान का इस्तीफा तो हो गया, लेकिन जिन बच्चों ने सुसाइड करी है उनके परिवार को 1 करोड़ का मुआवजा और मिलना चाहिए ना, मिलना चाहिए ना 1 करोड़ का मुआवजा उन सारे परिवारों को। और दूसरा, ये जो पुलिस वाले गुंडों ने हरकत करी थी 20 तारीख को, उसके ऊपर पुलिस वालों के ऊपर एक्शन तो होना ही चाहिए। डीसीपी संदीप लांबा, एसीपी अजय शर्मा, सचिन शर्मा, ये जो लाठियां चलाई है ना अपने अमित शाह और मोदी के नाम पर, अभी एक इस्तीफा हुआ है, याद रखना कॉकरोच से पंगा नहीं लेना है। अगर एक मंत्री का इस्तीफा ले सकते हो तो तुम लोग क्या हो, तुम्हारी हमने लाठियां खा ली, सर फुड़वा लिया। इस देश के स्टूडेंट्स ने बहुत हिम्मत वाला काम करा है।
We have done it! We have done it! धर्मेंद्र प्रधान ने रिजाइन कर दिया है। We have bloody done it!
this is the point, Prasanajit, I was, discussing with my colleague that इस सरकार में इस्तीफे नहीं होते, and that's the point which Dipke made. Right now, I really don't want to get into the first, I would say, what next for the Modi government. But why did Gen Z succeed where Congress party, where other political agitations failed, farmer agitation failed? Why did Gen Z succeed? What's the sociology behind it, Prasannaji?
Yes. If I can follow your question, there were some audio issues, but nevertheless,
I'm saying, why did Gen Z succeed? Why didn't opposition succeed?
Yes. I mean, Gen Z is one thing and opposition is another thing. Mr. Rahul Gandhi acted in a very positive spirit because he wanted a settlement in terms of a democratic dialogue, in terms of a democratic understanding of each other's perspectives. So that is one role that chief opposition leader of opposition has played, which is very, very commendable and appreciable at this point of time. The other point is about Gen Z. In last 12 years of this rule, the Gen Z has been left high and dry. Unemployment rate is very high, decline in undergraduate education. There is no access to various sectors of employment at all. And certain sections of people who start a startup and they get a huge amount of bank loan. So therefore, education and the systematic development of brain, skill, capacity, intellect actually has been totally bypassed in the market. Now, this kind of a disjunction has never been there in the structuring of the politics and structuring of various layers of Indian society. For the first time, we see a disjunction between education and employment in a very, very systematic manner. Earlier, such a disjunction existed because market was not able to absorb people. But now you have a growing, expanding market. You claim to be becoming...
Wait a minute. Okay, Prasannaji,
Vijay, economy, but at the same time, you have no employment. Yeah.
Vijay, look at the visuals.
Absolutely. They picture speak 1,000 words. This is speaking of umpteen emotions, Kartikeji. This is also about what people really feel. See, you were asking a question, right? Why did the Gen Z win? Why did this movement win? I think it's simply because it resonated with everybody. It's not just about education. It's about families getting impacted. It's about a normal Indian asking questions and not getting answers. And somewhere they got an impetus through this movement that, where is the accountability of the government? The government has to listen. If they don't listen, the government is elected by the people, by you and me. If they don't listen to us, who are they listening to? That's important. The second thing is there has been so much of unrest over the last 12 years. There have been so many open issues which were there, which nobody really spoke about. This is the time, and I think through this movement, all these issues came out. The third thing is you're talking about Gen Z, a generation which has been misunderstood for various reasons, for the fact that they use social media all the time. But they have actually shown that social media can be such a powerful tool if you use it well. They have managed to galvanize people, not just in India, but across the world, to think about something which is very common, which is education. Because if you are educated, if you are literate, it only helps India in the long run. This is brand India. This is not about Modi. This is not about Amit Shah. This is not about the government. At the end of the day, if education is good, if we are educated, everybody is educated. If there are systems in place which make sure that our system is which make sure that the NET exam happens well and everything around it happens well. There are no leaks. There is no corruption. There is more accountability. It will only help India in the long run, because if you are educated, there is curiosity, there is creativity, and there is employment. So I think the government has understood that. The Prime Minister has understood that. It's a little late in the day though, after 47 days, but at least they've made a start. But what is important is the other two demands should also be met, because I think there are three demands. There's been one demand which has been met, and I'm sure they're going to be negotiating on that too. So it's very important to keep the fight on, but also important to not underestimate the Gen Z. The Gen Z is not somebody you can underestimate. They have shown the rest of the world, they have shown India at large, that if you put your mind, heart, and your soul to it, literally, figuratively, metaphorically, you can win. And they just shown that it is possible. And the interesting thing is, whoever you see here is there irrespective of class, creed, or religion. Hindu, Muslim, Christians, people who are rich, people who are poor, it doesn't make any difference. Education is for one and for all, and they've just shown that it is possible. So the politicians will not like it because they would want to divide and rule. But what they're doing here is, they have made them understand that change is possible. I think it's a very, very interesting day today. And I think it's a very interesting moment. We need to support them as much as we can, and also applaud the government for making this change. The government has done what it's done, but they also need to do much more.
The government is. Oh, Sunita ji also joining. Thank you, madam, for joining me for such a short notice. Sunita Evans, senior journalist, she joins me from Lucknow. Madam, what do you make of it? These are the scenes from Jantar Mantar and Cockroach Janta Party leaders were saying. कहा जाता था कि सरकार में इस्तीफे नहीं होते हैं. Sunita ji, am I audible to you, madam?
Are you asking me?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, because your voice is getting a little disturbed. Okay, yes, कहा जाता था कि इस्तीफे नहीं होते हैं, but I suppose the government weighed the pros and cons, of a resignation plus this and versus the way it was spreading. The protest was spreading across the country. Yesterday, Pune was a big affair. Maharashtra was a big affair. And then in UP, Lucknow, Allahabad, Varanasi, Kashi Vidyapith, everywhere the students were gathering, and not only students, the parents, advocates, and others. And I said that, UGC equity norm had divided them. Now, again, this had united them. It was irrespective of the caste creed. In fact, one Dalit activist yesterday told me that even after the caste of Abhijit Dipke was made public, that he was a Dalit, 80% of the participants belonged to the upper caste, general category. So he said that it shows that they have united, and it was one movement after Rama Temple movement which united people. It was a bigger thing. Now, having said so, they have won one battle, which is definitely the resignation of Dharmendra Pradhan. They said it was non-negotiable. But there are still issues that need to be tackled, because whether that would end paper leak, I don't know about it. So I think the government will have to also work on that and find ways to correct the systematic failures.
Absolutely. Yes, Prasenjit, I know you wanted to come in. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to say that the students are not divided across caste lines here. So comparing it as a caste divided society and some precedent of the caste division among the students is not justified in understanding the movement. Secondly, the unity has nothing to do with something like Ram Temple or something like a religious symbolism. It is entirely based on the suffering of the young minds who have found that they are not having access to education and employment. And faulty national education policy mooted by Mr. Pradhan without any debate or discussion have actually created immense slaughter across the educational institutions of the country. Undergraduate admission has dropped radically, and young students feel that there's no value to education, there's no value to degree at this moment. But that education is to develop a personality, is to grow the intellect, is to grow the brain. All these basic ideas of education are completely sacrificed in the name of skill and employment. And that was such an asymmetric move that in last 10 years, the entire educational backbone of the country has been destroyed. Then a particular organization started taking over the educational institution. All the heads, directors, vice chancellors have to belong to a certain category. And that's where the category is coming in. And everyone knows, I don't want to spell it out. When will education be out of this kind of a nexus, this kind of a capture of an evil mindset? That is what the younger generation is asking for. And those of us who are in education for last 30 years have experienced today such a sharp decline that we really feel that we have reached at the stage of nemesis. From there, it requires a total revival. So India has to revive its higher education system. Otherwise, it will not be educated at all. And this is something that comes out from this movement with Dharmendra Pradhan's resignation. It's a resignation for a massive failure that he has brought in the educational system. Therefore, we need to have ways and means to revive higher education in terms of its fundamental principles. The principles of having higher academic ways of doing research, doing teaching, all that has been given a go by. This has to return to the educational scenario at this moment of time. That's it, Kat.
Okay. Let me play out a couple of bites. My PCR is saying, let's cut to Saurabh Das's bite.
Salute! दोस्तों, इस्तीफे नहीं होते बोल रहे थे और
देश का युवा जब बाहर निकल आया तब उसने बोला फीफा भी होगा, पुलिस वालों पे एफआईआर भी होगा और सरकार भी झुकेगी। एक बार अपने लिए जोरदार तालियां बजा दो। भारत माता की, भारत माता की, भारत माता की।
हेलो एवरीवन, आप सबको बहुत 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 बधाई। हमारे देश के युवाओं को, जेनजी को बहुत बधाई। बहुत खुशी की बात है, आप लोगों का संघर्ष रंग लाया। धर्मेंद्र प्रधान को अल्टीमेटली इस्तीफा देना पड़ा। ये पूरी डेमोक्रेसी की बहुत बड़ी जीत है। हमारे देश में लोगों का जनतंत्र से भरोसा ही उठ गया था। लोगों को लगने लगा था कि सरकारें सुनती नहीं है। जनता सरकारों के सामने चिल्लाती रहती थी, गिड़गिड़ाती रहती थी। हर चीज के लिए हम सरकार को हाथ जोड़ते रहते थे, पैर पकड़ते। सरकारें कभी सुनती नहीं थी। इतना बड़ा संघर्ष हुआ और अल्टीमेटली सरकार के अहंकार को झुकना पड़ा, जनता के सामने झुकना पड़ा। ये बहुत बड़ी जीत है, पूरे जनतंत्र की जीत है, डेमोक्रेसी की जीत है। और सरकार को भी अब समझ लेना चाहिए कि आपको जनता की सुननी पड़ेगी। ये डेमोक्रेसी है, डेमोक्रेसी इज बाय द पीपल, ऑफ द पीपल, फॉर द पीपल। मैं उम्मीद करता हूं कि सरकार नीट के सिस्टम को ठीक करेगी ताकि अगली साल अब से पेपर लीक होना बंद हो जाए इस देश के अंदर। अब हमारे बच्चों को आत्महत्या ना करनी पड़े। जय हिंद।
So, Vijay, on a sober note, what do you expect in Parliament to happen? I'm not asking that when the Parliament function, do you think that this will lead to a constructive debate, or will it make opposition even more aggressive and go for other issues as well? You know, it's like tasting the blood. This has happened for the first time.
This happened for the first time, absolutely. But the BJP can also build a narrative saying that they've taken action. They have done something about it. So I think it's ultimately about which party wants to take narrative and how they want to move forward with it. But I think the larger picture here is how are you going to correct the system? What are the steps they're going to take here? I think the government's job is not done as yet. They really have to take corrective measures in terms of ensuring that this problem does not happen again. As we talk, leaks are happening all across India. That should not happen again. The second thing is, if you're talking about fast codes which are there, or if you want to talk about action, what action has been implemented, right? So I think the Prime Minister's taken the right step. He's understood that this is quite serious because he saw the Gen Z really, coming out in large numbers, not just in Delhi, but all across India and all across the world. They realized that this is a brand India. They don't want brand India to suffer. Now this is going to be a very interesting debate in the Parliament. This is what the Parliament is about. We always wanted them to discuss and deliberate in the Parliament because it is a temple of democracy. Now here the opposition really has a point of view, whereas the government also has a point of view in terms of how they want to take it forward. It's very important that there's an outcome which comes out of it. They don't just keep discussing and deliberating, but they also understand there's a taxpayers' money which is involved, and people are going to be watching this very keenly now. Because they have, I think more than tasting blood, because Gen Z has tasted blood, everybody's going to be watching this very closely now. Because they've seen that, change can happen, right? If you really put your mind and effort to it, it can happen. They've just shown us how it can be done just by sustained consistency, just by, doing what they really want to do. And they've shown it. It's quite possible. So there's going to be a lot of focus in the Parliament about this, about what the government is going to do next. The government has to be more proactive here. The government has to take ownership and say, yes, we made a mistake, but they want to move forward, get the corrective measures in place, get a committee in place, which is neutral, which is, not from the government. I think there is I don't think in India we lack intellectual power. In India, we have enough and more intellectual power. Why can't we use that well in terms of managing something which is so important for us, which is education? So get that in place, get your technology in place, use the technology, use AI for this, and, try to get a foolproof system, a foolproof mechanism by which these things don't ever happen again. You don't want a situation where, Dharmendra Pradhan Resigns, another one comes and takes his place, and you have the same problem again. Then you're just, fixing the holes. That's really not going to work. What we need is a long-term solution. What we need is a system needs to change, and for that there needs to be a foolproof mechanism. The government needs to use technology. The government doesn't lack will. If they're pushed to the wall, they can do it. They've shown they can do it. They've been, winning elections for the last 12 years. They can do it. They have to win the trust of the people right now. Till now, the governments, for them, the opposition was not the opposition. Because they were winning elections, they were really at a different height. They have realized their opposition is not opposition, but it's the people. The people were not, were questioning the government. And that's when they realized, let's listen to the people and let's make this change. So this is the first victory for them. But I think for Gen Z and for everybody else, I think this is not just the victory. We need to also look ahead and say, what are the other two issues which can be solved? They wanted, 1 crore plus for each family who lost children in terms of suicide. And the third thing was, in terms of what are the corrective measures in place. Government has to play a very important role. Government has to be proactive from here. Government has to build a narrative and show that they are really working on this. They have to show that accountability is something which is very important for them, because till now they have not been accountable. We have not been asking them enough questions. And now that we've got a chance, we should just press the leg on the accelerator and not let them give in at all.
Okay. I was just reading the letter of Dharmendra Pradhan, Sunita ji, in which he makes a long spiel about how he has worked for the party, how he has worked for the government, and it is for the students. He's putting in his papers and all that. But he also says, मैं नहीं चाहता कि राष्ट्र विरोधी ताकतें इस आंदोलन को अपने हाथ में ले लें. So, ma'am, there are two things. If you look at the press conference which was done by Delhi police commissioners, I had gone to Jantar Mantar yesterday. I saw facial recognition systems, sir. I really did not know, Sunita ji, why were they deployed, because, there's also an element of right to privacy. Puttaswamy judgment is also there. But the police had, deployed those. Do you feel that the policing was heavier, harder?
Can't hear you.
I'm saying, was policing of the students was heavy, high-handed, harder? The way they were dealt with? How did you look at it from, say, Lucknow?
Okay. Now, from Lucknow, if I have to look at it, that Yogi had issued a warning, and he had warned them that if you dare do a similar protest here, you'll know what you'll face. And then there was a retaliation from Jantar Mantar. Yogi ji, please stop paper leaks in UP, otherwise we'll come there. So it is not something which is, you can handle it by issuing warnings. That Yogi must have understood also. Now, coming to the letter, now the minister's letter, that is a face saving. He had to resign under pressure. Look, whatever they may say, but everybody has seen the videos. I may not be physically present there, but I saw the videos where the children, they were teenagers, very young, innocent looking, and they were least bothered about what Rahul Gandhi was doing or Akhilesh Yadav was doing. They were busy doing their own, they were very creative rather, and innovative in their protest. And also, even the bashing, whatever was done, the atrocities that were done on them did not stop them. In fact, it provoked them to come in larger numbers. So now I have a feeling BJP is very good at building narratives. They'll say we accepted the demand of the Gen Z, which, but they must ensure that they are not vindictive. The system is not vindictive, that the students are not penalized, and whatever promises they have made, they do, and they move forward. If the BJP government and Modi decides to move forward and not be vindictive and take action against the students or against Abhijit Deepke, or and pay compensation as he had promised, then I think the issue will die down. I too thought it will have a huge impact in 2027 elections, but now that things are settling down, but it's too early. I think the government should also engage with the students. They should talk to them. They all are educated lot, and if they engage with the students, they'll be able to get some suggestions, some good suggestions, because as I said once, that it's not about NEET only, it's about education as a priority. It's about our examination system, the changes that we are making frequently in the syllabus. So there are a lot of issues involved, and I think it's high time the government takes education as a priority, engages with students, and resolve the issues that are there. BJP is very good at building narratives. I don't think so opposition will get any such brownie points for this. It was a Gen Z agitation, and it remained a Gen Z agitation. There is a clip of a Muslim boy saying that I can't go there. If something happens, they'll say you are a terrorist. So these things were coming. But now that the resignation has happened, I think such narrative should stop. And he shouldn't have mentioned it also in his letter, but it's a fail-safe. Give him that much.
Absolutely. Brijesh also joined me. Thank you, Brijesh, for joining me at such a short notice. कमाल हो गया, unexpected है ये.
Well, absolutely. And I think, I mean, other than what has happened and what has been, told by Prasenjit ji and Sunita ji and others, I would say that, that this is a perfect opportunity for the government also to put its communication line in order. If you ask me, because we have discussed this several times in your program, also before the start of the monsoon session, who in his right mind, allows any kind of protest to take place at Jantar Mantar and, let it go? Because the government initially thought that, all this Chhatra Janta Party or, Sonam Wangchuk, the kind of damage they will do to the government will be in a very, very limited fashion and they will be able to contain it. And it is this high-handedness, I think, which provoked the students to come to this level. The fact of the matter is that not only Sonam Wangchuk was forcibly lifted from the Jantar Mantar side. I mean, when his wife put out a series of tweets about how, she's not being allowed to meet, she doesn't know what kind of, medicines are being administered to her, and so on and so forth. It triggered a fury of protest. Many felt that, it is one thing that, that paper leak has happened and government is saying that we will put, system in place, we will remove certain things, we'll get a new bill, and so on and so forth. I think the high-handedness was the catalyst. If you ask me, the high-handedness on Saturday morning and absolutely shameful the barbaric, I would say, lathi charge done by Delhi police on Monday morning on students. It was a big catalyst, in fashioning out the way this particular protest has turned out to be. The student community thought that, instead of, applying ointment on them, dealing properly with them, what the government did was that the government was trying to bring it through. On one side, you're calling, representation from CJP and others to talk. On the other side, you're using pellet guns and lathi charging students, kids, young girls, and there. But it's also brought out, that what opposition parties couldn't do. This particular bunch of youngsters, both boys and girls, they have perhaps exposed or they have put Prime Minister Narendra Modi's in its most vulnerable political moment in the last 12 years. After 2024, when the government couldn't get an absolute majority of its own, many thought it was on a political decline, including myself. And, but later on, they scripted a big comeback. They clawed back by winning state elections. Then we saw what happened with other political parties and so on and so forth. But, with this particular thing, I think, 50-70% of the blame also lies at the doorstep of the advisors of the government and person who are asked Delhi police to do lathi charge on students and boys and girls. This triggered the real fury which we started witnessing post Monday. And what is the interesting thing is that Karthikeya, if you have been there, the students were not political. And the reason why the government was not able to contain it was that the students were apolitical. They were coming from all walks of life. And the government did try to threaten them. There was a Muslim chap who was there who has been providing food and drinks to all the people who were there protesting. And his family in Uttar Pradesh he claimed that his family in Uttar Pradesh was being harassed by the police, forcing them to call him back. These kind of sheer high-handedness and, the attitude of, I am the God and I'll bulldoze through you. It was the catalyst which triggered in perhaps the government's most embarrassing time right now as we speak.
Okay, Prasanna ji,
yeah.
lot of questions on NTA, lot of questions on, I would say, the education system. There's also one very important aspect. I was talking to someone, who's part of the political, I would say, influence-making machine. He said, for the first time, BJP was also behind a tech curve, which is Instagram.
Yes, but can Instagram give them a better image? They cannot really secure. The kind of comments Honorable Prime Minister has received after his 2 Instagram posts actually is an eye-opener that the Gen Z has awakened, and you cannot fool them by any manner. You cannot chastise them or you cannot just placate them in this way or that way. What remained unachieved so far, you see, in the central government, at the Group 3 Group 4 and Group 2 level, total number of vacancies now are 34 lakhs. You know, young people are seeking jobs and you are not giving them jobs. You are not even advertising various positions. And even if we advertise, paper leak regularly happens. Now, in the process of leaking the paper, something tantalizing has come out. 46 people in the NTA, those who were found responsible for paper leak, they came through the recommendation of a certain organization. I don't want to name that organization. Now, when will our country's system and institutions remain fair and neutral and not be biased and prejudiced in line with the ideologies of a certain organization, be it left, be it right, be it anybody? These ideologies have to be kept outside the offices of our institutions. And that is a daunting task. Look at the appointment of new education secretary and the kind of things that is there as the precedent of his action in the agriculture ministry with cucumber subsidy. Now, why should you depend on a bureaucrat for education? Why can't you literally bring an important professor, maybe Professor Bijayan here, who made a lot of sense? This kind of colleagues are available across the country, and they must come in the forefront of the education. So, but that is not happening in this government. Education is left to some people who are influencers, people who have nothing to do with universities, IITs, IIMs. These people are in the forefront. And therefore, education has been taken for a complete ride. And in last 12 years, what has happened is that young people feel totally discouraged in continuing with their education. And this is something that is breaking the backbone of our democracy completely.
Okay. A big breaking news. After resignation of Pradhan, meeting between Amit Shah, Modi is over. CJP negotiators have arrived at Vittal Bhai Patel Bhavan. This is the third round of meeting between CJP and BJP, which means that today BJP will primarily ask the Chhatra Janta Party to call off the agitation. Vijay, what do you have to say? Will this happen? Will now, since the resignation has happened, the big meeting is over, do you think that they'll pressurize now these students to call off the agitation, because that was the principal demand, that okay, today you can conclude your agitation?
So
is the question to me?
I think it's going to happen.
It's a question to Vijay. It's a question to Vijay.
Yeah. I think it's going to happen because they're doing it step by step. Modi ji's videos, in the night, and now this what has happened today in terms of the resignation. I think they're doing it in a phased manner. They've also told the CJP party that their first demand is met. So I think the next step, which will be a gradual and consistent manner, they would want to go there and tell them to call off that to call off the protest. Because if they don't do it, this issue is going to get escalated, and they would not know how to stop it. So I think it's very important for the BJP, like you said, like I also said, it's also about them to build a narrative and to show that they mean business, they mean action, and they want to take accountability for what's happened in the past and take action for it. I think they would do that. I think that's what they're planning to do, and I hope they do it, because if they don't do it, this matter will only get escalated more and more.
But I
believe Kartikeya one sentence that suddenly the agitation will not be called off. Other two demands also have to be met, Professor Bijoy. That is very important.
Which one? Can you just get into that?
Two demands. Demand number 2 is, first was Dharmendra Pradhan. Demand number 2 is providing compensation of 1 crore to 20 or 25 students who have, committed, who died by suicide after NEET exam, this thing. And third is removal of all cases which have been filed against the volunteers of Chhatra Janta Party. And I think, it is demand number 3, which will be the most interesting thing to look at, because we have seen how, in the heat of the moment, or like, for a month or 2 months, you say there are protests and all. But if the cases are not removed, then, it comes back to haunt you in a big, big way. Later on in your life, when you apply for studies abroad, or when you apply for passport, when you apply for various other things, scholarship and others, I think this will come back to haunt. So I think one of the critical demand, which I don't think the government will have any problem in accepting it, because, the biggest stumbling block, or rather the ego thing, was the resignation of Dharmendra Pradhan. So if they have accepted resignation of Dharmendra Pradhan, I don't see these two demands of becoming any stumbling block, because the government has already, indicated a couple of days before that they want to, give money to the students who have committed suicide.
मुझे पता नहीं अभी होगा क्या, पर प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंसेस का दौर दिल्ली में शुरू होने वाला है, क्योंकि आई एम गेटिंग फ्लडेड विद मैसेजेस कौन सी कहाँ प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस होने वाली है. सो आई थिंक ये जो प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस का दौर है, ये मुझे लगता है 4 बजे से शुरू होगा. 4 o'clock, I think Congress is organizing a press conference. I think subsequently other political parties are also going to announce press conference. Yes, Vijay, you wanted to say something?
So I think you should be thanking the Gen Z because press conferences are back in action. And somewhere I think we're going to get more information, more accountability, more responsibility. And it's not just going to be about one-way traffic, right? It's going to be two-way traffic where there's not going to be a monologue. I think it's very important for democracy because today is a day where democracy is really won in more ways than one. But what's also important, it has to be built. It has to build on it and do something more. I don't think they've really won anything so far. What really is important is the other two demands are also met. That's going to be important, and how the government reacts to it. Now it's imperative.
But Vijay,
But the main reason is that I believe today, the 25th of July 2026, is the day that the people of our country have started claiming their country back from those who have tried to destroy the constitution, from those who have tried everything to oppress and suppress the voice of our people. I believe that this is a victory for the youth of India. I am so proud of each one of them who has gone and stood there. They have done it exactly in the way that Mahatma Gandhi taught us. They have done it non-violently. Pellet guns were fired at them. Tear gas was fired at them. They were beaten with lathis. They had injuries, serious injuries, but they did not bend. The government had to bend to their will. And that is a lesson for every ruler of this country from now to forever. You have to listen to the will of the people. In this country, this is a democracy. The will of the people is paramount. There is nothing above it. No human being, no single leader, no dictator, no force can stop the will of the Indian people. Today this has been proved by our students, by our young people. And they have stood there regardless, everywhere, not just in Delhi, across India. They have not cared about any political party, anybody who is trying to make politics out of it, anything. They have not cared. They have stood for what they believed was right. They have fought for what they believed was right. And this is their victory. I give them my compliments. We in the Congress party have tried our best to support them in the strongest way possible. Rahul Gandhi ji has been talking about this issue of paper leaks and exams for a long time. For a long time. I think it's been over 2 or 3 years that he's been raising this issue. So I think that I want to compliment him as well, because he has raised this issue and he has got the rest of us in the party, the NSUI, the Youth Congress, to not only support the students, but to create a movement all across the country for the rights of students, for the reform of our education system. So now, I think this is the beginning. But I'm really, really happy. I got a little bit emotional when I heard this news, because many times in these last 10 or 12 years, I've thought to myself, when are our young people going to wake up? Look what is being done to our country. RSS is filling the entire educational system. Every post, every vice chancellor, the ideology of our forefathers has been broken down. Force is being used against young people, against anybody who raises their voice and protest. So today I'm a very happy person, because the youth of our country has spoken and nobody can ever dare to silence their voice.
देश के युवाओं की जीत है, इस देश के फ्यूचर की जीत है, ये इस देश के आम आदमी की जीत है। जिन लोगों ने इस देश में लोकतंत्र खत्म कर दिया था, लोकतंत्र में सवाल पूछने को गुनाह मान लिया था, आज उन लोगों से हमने अपना देश वापस ले लिया है। अभी सिर्फ शुरुआत हुई है। हम अपनी पूरी देश की शिक्षा व्यवस्था को बदलेंगे। हमें बहुत खुशी है, आज वो 21 परिवार जिन्होंने अपनों को खो दिया, आज हम उन्हें याद कर रहे हैं। ये सिर्फ शुरुआत है और आगे बहुत लड़ाई लड़नी बाकी है।
So obviously the mood is pretty much elated. 4 p.m. there will be press conference, will be done by Pawan Kher of the Congress party. We expect also a smaller press conference of CJP once the meeting at the Vittal Bhai Patel Bhavan, the Constitution Club, where the meeting is expected to take place. I think the meeting will start anytime right now. A meeting was expected to start after 3:30, but that's beyond that's besides the point. Vijesh, there are a couple of things here. Let's talk about them one by one. The first thing was that NEET was a very pervasive issue, an administrative lapse issue, an administrative failure issue, which BJP was trying to cast it in ideological framework. Why did they do it? They cast every political fight in an ideological framework. Why were they able, or why did they fail to cast NEET issue from the ideological framework? They have tried anti-social elements, but why did they fail this time? Even in farmers' protests, they casted that ideological position, national versus anti-national.
Well, this is something which they tried in this particular protest as well, but they didn't succeed. And the reason I would say they didn't succeed is that if you ask me, the protest is neatly demarcated into two timelines. The first timeline is till Sonam Wangchuk is picked up from Jantar Mantar by plainclothes policemen who put all those clothes around him so that his picking up forcefully is not recorded in cameras and being taken to Safdarjung Hospital. I think the government got too smug. I think the government was high on the fact that till now they have brazened through every political dissent and they have brazened it successfully. And there was no time, not a single time when the government had to be on the back foot as far as any kind of protest is concerned. The farmer agitation, though it was covered extensively, but it was restricted to a portion in Delhi, some parts in Western Uttar Pradesh and in Punjab. But it didn't had a nationwide cascading effect. But if you look at this protest, from Saturday morning when Sonam Wangchuk was picked up to Monday, when the students tried to stage a march up to Parliament, and the way they were lathi charged, the way their tear gas shells were fired at them, and the way, all those small kids, young boys and girls, and they were trying to do a protest, and in something, which I think, most of us have done in the youth when we were in college, protesting against one thing or another. The sheer brutality, I think the sheer brutality of the lathi charge and others, it triggered an avalanche. And what the government feared, and the reason this time that the government had to take resignation of Dharmendra Pradhan is that it had a cascading effect. Now all of a sudden we are seeing in Allahabad, in Varanasi, in Mumbai, a model, who stopped a police bus carrying protesters and all, and she emerged as a heroine in this entire agitation for the sheer willpower she exhibited by stopping that bus and standing in front of the bus like a true heroine, and the kind of applause she got, so it was a connecting issue. Anybody who has a child 1, 2, 3 felt emotionally connected to the fact that not only the life of the future of the children is compromised, when the government is raising voices, when the students are raising their voices, the only way the government deems fit to deal with it is to indulge in lathi charge. And I think this is the reason why the government realized that the majority of the students who were there were natural, organically there. They were not at the behest of one political party or another. They were not the cockroaches. They were not, someone who's known to Sonam Wangchuk. They were not from the Congress. They were not from the Aam Aadmi Party. It was an organic protest. People felt so helpless and so angry at the sheer attitude, the cavalier attitude of the government, that they could not stop themselves from joining them. And this is the reason why I think the government very quickly realized, it's a very politically astute government. It immediately realized that, that this is only this far we can go and not beyond that. And that is the reason why, the government understood that there is no way they can have a functional, first leg of the monsoon session of Parliament. There is no way they can control the crowd which is assembled there, because it's not a political crowd which you can threaten or lure them with counter promises and all. And they were forced to act. It was sheer willpower of the youths of this country who assembled there, and they were not from any political person. Second thing, Kartikeya, I would really want to bring out, because I don't think that has been brought out enough in the discussion, is the image of the Prime Minister. Image of the Prime Minister, for the first time, Kartikeya, I have seen youths of the country being so irreverential to the Prime Minister. I'm not going to go into the slogans which were there. They were in, very crude language, very crass language. But if you look at the import of what happened, if you look at the import of all of those sloganeering wars, for the first time in 13 years, and I have been covering BJP at least from 2013 in national capital till 2026. For the first time, I have seen 100 people standing in the middle of a road, calling Prime Minister names, and being completely irreverential about it. And not a single soul came to object. And anybody who came to object saying that Sanatan is this, or like you guys are, people also said that China is behind this or Bangladesh is behind this. The kind of rebuff they got was scary. So Prime Minister also understood that the more this protest lasts, the bigger damage it will cause, not to the likes of Dharmendra Pradhan and the NTAs or the PTAs or whatever. It is going to cause the biggest damage will be the image of the Prime Minister himself. So I think what the Prime Minister has done, if you ask me in one line, the Prime Minister has cut his losses.
I think the Prime Minister cut his losses. Also, Prasannaji, for the first time, the journalists also got assaulted. Let me be very frank. For the first time, I covered Anna Hazare agitation. I was a journalist covering the Congress party, but no one came after me. For the first time, I saw a lot of journalists not using mics. My colleague Sneha went, she used News9's mic. But traditional media avoided the mics, and I felt, sad at the partisan nature of politics, the relationship of media people, and even genuine journalists with whom I have really worked getting hounded for no reason. I know it's a tricky space for us because we work in the same milieu, but as someone who came to this profession in 1998, it's 2026, I really felt sad. Prasannaji. Am I audible to you, Prasannaji? Okay, Vijay, you can take that. You can take that, Vijay.
Yeah. So the problem is with this kind of revolution, with this kind of movement which happened, I think everybody got affected, everybody got influenced by it, and the youth were leaving no stone unturned. And I think, as you spoke about the Prime Minister is very conscious of the credibility of India, very conscious about his own credibility. He doesn't want brand India to suffer, doesn't want his brand to suffer. What we realized is over a period of time in the last 4 weeks, in the last 47 days, nobody from the government had spoken up. And the government thought, it's just going to be a one-way traffic. But they didn't realize that this movement is only going to get steam over a period of time. Not just in Jantar Mantar, but in cities all across India and all across the world. And we've always noticed that whenever anything happens to the Prime Minister Modi in terms of his personal image, in terms of what happens to India, he tends to take quick action on that. Now, what's important here is, whether this action is just for optics or what do we get out of it? Because it should not be a band-aid solution. It needs to be a solution which also works, which also helps in creating a system in place. Like what happened in the Anna Hazare movement, this is also going to be that kind of movement, which if it gathers more wings, then things will change. But what's also important is whether the other demands are also met. But it's a day to rejoice. And also with India, I feel every Indian has resonated with this. Every Indian has understood this, because there are families who've been influenced and impacted by what's happened, by the students committing suicide. There are families who've taken loans for the NET exam. So for them, it's somewhere, I think it's a victory for them. For them, it's about understanding that the government wants to listen to them. The government has taken the first step, but also it's important that the government does not just fall back from here and also builds a powerful narrative that they want to listen to the people. Because if they don't listen to the people have become their main opposition now. And the government is seeing the writing on the wall. They have seen placards which talks about the government, which talks about the Prime Minister. I don't think in the last 12 years or 14 years, we've seen the Prime Minister Modi being abused like this, which is very wrong, very deplorable. But this generation is very irreverent. This generation does not really bother about name tags, does not bother about seniority, is not bothered. They want to get the work done. They want to ensure that at any cost, this happens for them. And they managed to achieve it. That's important. And it's also a lesson for everybody else that, if a movement like this is so strong and so thriving, you can really make it happen. They use social media.
Shekhar, I wouldn't say 2014 was a revolution, but it was a historic election. After 25 years, we had a government with simple majority, after Rajiv Gandhi. So it was very historic in nature. But every historic nature has an age curve, and those who were voting for Modi are in a different age band, And these people, the so-called Gen Zs, they have only seen Prime Minister Modi at the helm of affair. So obviously, when the entire image management has been that he's behind everything. So if you get the bouquet, you will also end up with the entire bouquet of brickbats. That's fair enough. सब अगर गुलाब भी आपके हैं तो पत्थर भी आपको सब मिल जाएंगे, बटेंगे नहीं किसी में. ये बहुत बड़ी साफ बात है. Nikhil has joined us. Thank you, Nikhil, for making time. Nikhil, first your opening comments, and I like add one thing to it. Where political parties, if I may say, failed, these people succeeded. How?
Because I think this moment turned out to be a genuine people's movement. A lot of people have asked me this question, that why is it that Congress's Chhatron ki Goonj has not been able to match up in terms of the CJP protest, despite the fact that more on-ground protest was carried out by the Congress. And I think the reason for that is simple. Whenever a political party does a protest or has a movement, people always look at it with eyes of suspicion, whichever party it may be, Aam Aadmi, Congress, BJP. However, in this case, everybody knew that Chhatra Janta Party was not a political party, despite the name being such. It was a people's movement. People associated with it. They became a nucleus to what formed the nebula for me. Because I've been making this point for a while now, that this movement is not just the Chhatra Janta Party. Even in Delhi, the Chhatra Janta Party manages what exists between the barricades on the Jantar Mantar road. The Tolstoy Marg is not Chhatra Janta Party. Sansad Marg is not Chhatra Janta Party. The other city is not Chhatra Janta Party. They've become a symbol. They're very important. They initiated it. They've led a large part of it. But primarily, it is the people of India. It is the students of India, the youth of India who've led this movement. And another thing that I can tell you by personal I'm so sorry. Another thing that I can tell by personal experience going down in the protest and around is that it is also some sort, it's become a venting ground for people. So in the main protest site, most of the people are talking about NEET paper leaks, education system, and Dharmendra Pradhan. But the moment you cross into the Tolstoy Marg, most of the naras that you will hear, that is about the Home Minister, the Prime Minister, that is about Prime Minister Modi, that is about the police brutality. And a visual that really highlights things for me, something very profound that I saw just 2 days ago. On Janpath, I saw a bunch of 4 young girls walking next to a PCR shouting, "Police Murdabad, Police Murdabad." I could not have imagined that 10 days ago, but yes, 2 nights ago, I saw that.
Do you feel that this over-policing also led to a very strong reaction from the children? The entire issue of pellet injury has come, now, though the investigation, but the story is out. They are looking into it. One, Chhatra Janta report is out. Secondly, the facial recognition system that was deployed. So very intrusive technology is also, and one thing I told this to Brijesh, I also found out one thing, when I was covering Anna Hazare agitation, there was a lot of cleaning that took place. This time the cleaning was not there. So, I was telling him, कि अगर इसी तरह से रहा, तो यहाँ तो 5 मिनट नहीं खड़ा हो पाया जाएगा in next 48 hours.
करके आपको अपनी भाषा, अपना व्यवहार, अपनी भाषण देना पड़ा, और एक बार नहीं 2 बार देना पड़ा, क्योंकि नई पीढ़ी के लोग रात में भी जगते हैं, तो रात में भाषण दिया. वैसे तो 8 बजे भाषण होता है अक्सर, इस बार तो रात के 12 बजे के लगभग भाषण हो रहा है. ये बड़ी जीत है नई पीढ़ी के लोगों की, और सरकार को ये बात समझ लेनी चाहिए कि परीक्षा को लेकर के, शिक्षा को लेकर के, और कौन सी शिक्षा, प्राइमरी एजुकेशन से लेकर के हायर एजुकेशन तक पर सरकार को बहुत गंभीरता से सोचना पड़ेगा. परीक्षाओं के पेपर लीक ना हो, इसके लिए ठोस कदम उठाने पड़ेंगे. कानून बनना तो अपनी जगह है, सजा मिलना कोर्ट से मिलेगी, लेकिन किसी भी परीक्षा का पेपर लीक ना हो, ये सबक इस आंदोलन से सीखना चाहिए. और एक बात जो हम सब ने देखा, सीखा, समझा, भारतीय जनता पार्टी जो नकारात्मक राजनीति करती थी, नकारात्मक राजनीति के लिए वो न जाने कितनी धन दौलत खर्च करते थे, लेकिन नई पीढ़ी युवा के लोगों ने ऐसे नारे बनाए, ऐसे पोस्टर बनाए, जिनके बारे में और नारों के बारे में हम लोग सोच भी नहीं सकते थे. वो नारे आए, किसी का